Alright everyone, I was going to make a video going over all of the changes that I found in the AoM Retold tech tree, but Boyd already made a great video about that. I'd recommend watching that one if you want to see all of the changes. I think he caught pretty much everything. That video is an hour and a quarter long though, and I still wanted to talk about something, so this video is going to be specifically highlighting all of the brand new technologies and techs that have new effects that are going to be brought in Retold. And new effects as in new game mechanics and the like. So, you know, the important stuff. Anyways, that was my scripted part of the video that I wrote yesterday, so we're going to now not be scripted and be an absolute blabbering mess. So the first thing I'm going to go over is the god-specific powers, and I think I'm only going to go over the completely new ones. Like I said, completely new technologies, and not powers, I didn't mean powers, I meant techs. The new technologies and ones that have completely novel new effects, which I don't think any of these first 5 actually do. They're just like statistical changes or exactly the same as before. So yeah, we're gonna start with clairvoyance for Set. This tech gives Set additional charges of the Vision God power that can be cast with no favor, and they are granted more quickly. So if you don't know already, the God powers in Age of Mythology Retold are not going to only have singular charges, or a certain amount if you're Atlanteans. They're going to have unlimited charges. I think all of them. You can use them an unlimited number of times, but they cost favor to use again. Generally, a lot of favor. So, this tech gives Set the ability to use Vision more than once for free, not needing to pay that favor cost to, like, unlock it again or use it again. So Set basically gets a lot of free map vision, which is pretty cool. Thor has a new unique tech called Hammer of Thunder, and it buffs the Herseer, which are the Norse hero unit. It gives them 10% extra melee attack damage and lets them gather favor faster, or, like, create favor, because the Norse gather favor by fighting. Odin also has a new unique tech called Hamask. This one gives a buff to the Berserk, which is a new Norse unit, and specifically for every 1% HP missing, it gives the Berserks more speed and damage, so when they get lower on health, they are stronger. Moving on to Loki, he also has a new unique tech. This one is called Eyes in the Forest, and it causes nearby units of Mother Nature, like trees and animals, to temporarily grant vision. I don't know exactly how this works, I have not tried this, but it's certainly more useful than his old tech. I don't quite remember what it did. I think it just gave like a 10% stat to some random unit. It just wasn't very good. But this grants you more vision now, so maybe this helps you find like enemy granaries that are around the map so that you can go and attack their gatherers, or maybe it just finds their base, illuminates town centers so that you can check town centers and see if they've been taken or not, something like that. I don't know. I'm not quite sure about the applications of this. I should probably actually test that at some point, but those are the unique tech changes. So now we're going to go back to the Greeks, and actually the first thing is to talk about the new techs that are in the general tech tree. This at the granary got a pretty big change. The tech hunting dogs is no longer a thing, which used to give you a hunting bonus. It would make your hunters work faster, and that tech no longer exists, and in its spot we have hunting equipment, which is a heroic age tech instead of an archaic age tech. This gives villagers 25% more hit points, 25% more melee attack damage, plus 50% ranged attack damage, which I think only matters for them actually hunting animals, and it lets them gather from huntables 10% faster. I honestly don't know what to think of this tech. I have not used it very much in-game, so if you have thoughts about it, then let me know, because I got nothing. I don't know. And then the other new tech here that we have is ballistics. And this will sound familiar if you play AoE 2 or have played AoE 2, because this is basically a tech from AoE 2 that lets ranged soldiers, ships, and fortifications more accurately fire at moving targets. So it lets them track enemies better, basically, and like your archers aren't going to be just like missing when enemy cavalry is like strafing you or something, you know. It'll actually be hitting the enemies when they're moving like that. And at the very least, I'm pretty sure that ballistics applies to all civs. For some reason, okay, it is here in the Norse tech tree. It's not in the Egyptian tech tree for whatever reason. Instead, we have ballista. We have the ballista at the armory. You cannot train a ballista at the armory, just so you know. With the Egyptians, you cannot do that. you can get ballistics at the armory with the Egyptians in-game. So it's just the tech tree being a little wonky. Anyways, aside from those two techs though, there are other general tech tree alterations, but again, I point you towards Boyd's video if you want to see all of those. I'm just trying to go through all of the brand new stuff here, which I find the most exciting. For example, here we have Sarissa. This was a tech in the original Age of Mythology, but it presents to us now a new mechanic that I'm pretty sure was not present in AoM, which is extending the range of melee units. This tech gives hoplites extra damage, and it also adds 1.5 to their maximum range, which all I really know is that you really don't want to be playing cavalry into Sarissa hoplites, because those cavalry are going to get shredded, and it's going to be really hard to like just pull them away or try to strafe the hoplites. So that's it with that one. Ares has a couple of new mechanics for us to look at. First, with Phobos' Spear of Panic. This tech gives hoplites, militia, and prodromos extra divine melee attack damage. And divine damage is true damage. It ignores armor, so you always do the full damage with whatever divine damage is dealt. And divine damage is going to be one of these new mechanics that we see probably a good bit in Retold for all of these civs in some way, I would think. And this is the first example of that. We have Deimos' Sword of Dread, which has another new kind of mechanic. This increases the attacks of Hippaspists by 15%, and it also enables them an age earlier. And I think things like this are really cool because it can change the dynamic of the gameplay a lot, right? It gives you options for dealing with certain gods or certain units in different ways, and I don't know, I think that's awesome. Next, we have to hop down here to Oracle to see another new mechanic that is being added here. This tech still provides a line of sight buff like it did in the Titans, but it also lets you see what enemy buildings are training and researching when you select them. Basically, it lets you see whatever technologies your opponent is getting and what units they're training in the buildings that you can select, which I don't know how good of an effect that is, because, you know, it doesn't, like, give you a practical advantage, but it's knowledge, which is usually useful in some way, shape, or form. Next, we have Anastrophe. This was, again, another tech from the Titans, but it has a completely new effect where it allows pentacounters to deliver critical strikes, which slow the target and inflict extra damage. I'm pretty sure this is a guaranteed crit that has a cooldown, which is indicated by it actually, the ability, having a cooldown here. And so it basically just sounds like a strong attack, but having a charge attack for normal units wasn't something in the game before, at least to my knowledge, so that is very interesting. And also a pentacounter, by the way, if you don't know by name, is this little melee ship, the little hammer ship. Here's a completely new tech, I guess the first completely new tech that wasn't a new god tech. This is called Chthonic Rites, and it gives Hydra and Scylla the ability to regenerate hit points over time. I really like the idea of this tech because it fits the concept of the Hydra and Scylla, being that they're units that get much stronger over time as they continue fighting, and you're rewarded for keeping them alive because you get to keep a very powerful singular unit, right? And this helps with keeping them alive by allowing them to regenerate, so you don't have just, like, you know, a 5-headed Hydra on like 1 HP that's like 1 hit away or a few hits away from dying, and you're like, well, this is useless because it's 1 hit away from dying. So now your Hydras can just regenerate and they can, you know, get back to full strength while being even stronger than they were originally, you know? For another new mechanic, we have Thracian Horses. This tech gives cavalry what is basically 20% lifesteal. As it says, 20% of damage from all actions towards units regenerate hit points for cavalry. And lifesteal like this was not something generally in the game before. I believe that trolls could regenerate HP by dealing damage to enemies, but other than trolls, I don't really think that anything else in AoM the Titans did this, so it's a new effect, at least for human soldiers, for sure. Down here, we have another new tech called Argonauts, and this one gives you access to the Argo. I think by researching this tech, it gives you the Argo, and then you can retrain it, like as a normal unit. You can just retrain it again if the Argo is sunk. And this one was a bit of a weird one to me because it only seems to accomplish a couple of things, being that 1, it grants Hades access to the Argo instead of just Poseidon, which is what it was before. It was a unique unit for Poseidon. And 2, it locks the Argo into the Heroic Age and beyond, which I believe that you could train this in the Classical Age as Poseidon before. but now you can no longer do that, because if we look at Poseidon's tech tree, it's not like you get it automatically either. The Argo is still gotten as a tech right here. So, yeah, we have that, the Argo. The Argo is available as a tech now. Flames of Typhon is another example of a new mechanic. This upgrades the Chimera. It gives them plus 40% melee attack damage, it gives them special ability damage, and they deal damage over time. I can't actually see the exact effects for those last two because it is being cut off by the screen. I'll try to find a clip looking at this so that you can actually see the full description. But moving on, we have the Shafts of Plague. This tech makes your ranged soldiers a lot stronger, giving them plus 30% damage. This is divine damage, which is that new damage type that we just mentioned, as well as a damage over time effect, which is another mechanic that we just mentioned. So 2 new mechanics wrapped up in 1 tech. Cool. Next, we look at Egypt, and let's move over to Solar Bark, which is part of the collection that you may have already noticed of naval technologies that have been added in Age of Mythology Retold. They are putting a pretty large emphasis on spicing up the naval action in the game, which I think is pretty cool. We have techs like the Solar Bark, which summons sea snakes near enemy ships that your cabinets are attacking. And specifically, this enables charged spawn action, so it's a new mechanic, and it sets the ability recharge time to 500 and the ability recharge type to damage. So I think this means that you need to deal like 500 damage to like reduce the time for the ability to recharge, or dealing damage with the ships is going to be the way that you spawn more snakes, right? It's not like a timed cooldown ability per se, or it's not in practice, right? Like that's not how the ability works, even though it has a cooldown time. As well, the cabinets are the standard arrow ship, if you didn't already gather that. I don't know what's up with this, like, picture right here. All of the other boats are, like, on this, like, water at a certain angle with the, you know, the blue all in the background, and then you just have the cabinet, which is just all up in your face in this, icon. That's kind of weird. I don't know what's going on with that, but anyways, we're gonna move on. Crimson Linen is another example of the lifesteal mechanic. This tech applies a 20% lifesteal effect to all myth units, and it gives scarabs specifically a 60% lifesteal effect. So, you know, I don't know how good 60% lifesteal on scarabs is gonna be, but because they don't do much damage to human units, at least I don't think they do, or other, like, living units in general. They're meant to take down buildings, or that's what they're best at anyways. Regardless, we have Force of the West Wind. This tech enables you to construct catapults in age early, and that's the main thing here. It also makes siege weapons and myth units better against buildings, but it gives you the catapult in age early, which just makes sieging down town centers and fortresses and fortress equivalents in the heroic age way easier to do. I think this is a very cool tech. Again, like with the one that enables the Hypaspists early, this is one that can really change how certain situations play out and what you want to do in the game, and techs that do that are amazing, and I really like that. It's so cool. Here we have Axe of Vengeance, which increases the attack of axemen as they lose hit points and makes them stronger against buildings. So this gives them extra damage to buildings, which, you know, that's simple, but the new mechanic is the HP missing mechanic, where as they get lower, they do more damage. It's the same thing that we saw with Odin's special tech, the Hamask. I can't actually see the percentage here, or like the modifier here, so I'm gonna try again to get that on screen with an actual game snippet. But we have the Axe of Vengeance doing that sort of effect for Axemen. For Anubis, we have Serpent Spear. Here's another divine damage effect, divine damage over time effect, but this time it gives it to Spearmen. So it gives it to a melee unit this time. It gives 0.13 divine damage over time to melee attacks for 6 seconds to Spearmen. Nephthys has a completely new tech here called Funeral Rites, and this one gives you gold when your warriors fall in combat. So humans and heroes will return 5 gold on death. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's probably really good. That doesn't take too many units to pay off. That's like 20 units over the course of a game. A lot more than 20 units are gonna die, so that's definitely worth getting, and it's pretty cool. Funeral Barge, also for Nephthys, is another naval tech. This one occasionally summons Leviathans to take the place of war barges that you lose in battle. And the effect is that it spawns 1 Leviathan upon death with a 10% chance for war barges. And this tech is going to be either not very good or completely broken, I feel like, because losing a unit and then having it replaced with a really strong myth unit like the Leviathan, which is, you know, the big ol' I mean, it's a Leviathan. It's a big fish, big ol' strong fish. So yeah, that's really, really strong. Having a unit die and get replaced with that. But as we see, it's only at a 10% chance, so it could just like never happen. I don't know how good this tech is actually going to be, how good it actually is. I haven't tried it in game, but that's a really awesome effect. At least it's a very fun effect. You just get free Leviathans, you know. And then we have Valley of the Kings. Thoth teaches secrets that cause barracks and Migdal strongholds to spawn additional units when empowered. So you can empower one thing at a time with a pharaoh unless you're Ra, which doesn't matter because Ra does not get access to Thoth. But while you're empowering a barracks or a Migdal stronghold, you get double units. So every time a unit is trained from one of those buildings, another one spawns. This is pretty expensive, but if you have a pharaoh on a Migdal stronghold anyways, this is going to give you massive value. Like free units are free units, right? And especially with expensive ones in the Migdal stronghold, like the elephant, it's a lot of value. Even the other less expensive ones are probably still, you know, worth using this with because they're not cheap units. They're really strong units still. But regardless, this one's another really unique effect and potentially really broken too because, you know, free units, you always got to be careful with that. Moving over to the Norse, we have Sesrumnir. New tech for Freya, it improves the hit points of your heroes by 15%. Very simple, nice buff for the Hersir and the Godi, which is the new ranged hero for the Norse. Very nice. Over here, also for Heimdall, we have a completely new tech called Rigstula. And honestly, I cannot see this tech making it into the game's full release, at least as it is, because this tech is just broken by nature. It's fairly cheap, and it increases the speed at which your buildings train units and research technologies, including advancing to the next age. So it trains units faster, you research technologies faster, which applies to like unit upgrades. It probably applies to armory upgrades. It applies to age advancing, which we all know that takes forever, and that can be kind of important, the timing for your next age. So that's a really good effect for that. And then it also probably affects villagers and dwarves for the Norse, so it's a buff for your economy. And I say that, I assume that because they're in the picture. Like, you can see the gatherer and the dwarf right there. So, you know, I haven't had a lot of testing with this, but it sounds totally broken. Like, that's way too much for one technology to do, in my opinion, you know? For it not being, like, at least very expensive. Like, that's crazy. That's a permanent villager and military production advantage that you're always gonna have on your opponent if you have this tech. I don't know, man. Seems kind of OP. I guess we'll just have to see, you know? Next is Arctic Winds. Scotty enchants your Drekhar with the Icy Arctic Gale, allowing their attacks to slow down and even freeze enemies. So here's another new special effect for the Hammership, the Norse Hammership this time. So when it hits enemies, it can slow them and completely freeze them, apparently. I mean, that's just nice utility, lets you chase things down better, or just, you know, completely stop them in their tracks, and then you can just beat down the enemy ship. I just like seeing special effects being added to different units. I think it just makes the game more fun, so that's awesome. Call of Valhalla still does what it did before. It gives hit points, although to the Berserk, not the Ulfsark, because the Berserk replaced the Ulfsark as a unit. But when Berserks die, this tech also returns one favor, so it gives you favor back. Pretty nice if your composition is like Berserks and myth units, I guess. I'm not too sure, but that's cool. Another naval tech is Long Serpent, where Bragi blesses your longboats, causing them to become bigger, stronger, and to fire more arrows as they damage enemy units. I have not gotten to see this in action, and I really should, because I want to see if the longboats actually get bigger when they're attacking things, but it seems like a ramping sort of effect. I don't know if it's like permanent, like if they stack more arrows and get bigger, stronger as they attack and they keep those buffs, or like they shrink when they're not attacking. I don't know, but, you know, yet another naval technology to spice up water play in the game. For Njord, we have Vikings. This tech causes raiding cavalry to produce gold in addition to favor while fighting enemy units. So you get this tech and your raiding cavalry now become part of your economy. Yet again, another tech that I have not gotten the chance to test out, but it sounds really cool. It can probably be used very well in some situations to get you a lot of gold because you're always trying to fight as Norse anyways, anyways. Or not always, but you know, the Norse tend to be pretty aggressive, and they kind of need to be, because to get their myth units and techs, or some of the techs anyways, from the gods, you need to have favor, and you need to fight to gain favor, so you know, this just adds a little more to that. Here's a new unit upgrade. The mountain giants can now be upgraded to Jotuns, or Jotuns. When you get this tech, the mountain giant gains 35% hit points, 35% melee attack damage, it reduces their ability recharge time by 35%, it increases their speed by 35%, and it enables the punt action. Which I think is the kick that they had in AoM. I've only gotten this once, but it was in a game that was basically already over, so I didn't really get to see its effect. But the stats that this tech give the mountain giants are ridiculous. I mean, it buffs like every stat of theirs by 30%, which is insane. I don't know if the mountain giant just like needs the buff, like they're just weak without it, but regardless, that makes them way stronger. It certainly does. Anyways, Tyr also has Berserker Gang. Here's another example of lifesteal. This gives Berserks 35% lifesteal against enemy units, and that's basically all that it does. It gives the Berserks more power. There's been a lot of emphasis on the Berserks with the changed Norse tech tree, which I find pretty interesting, but I like it. I like that they're sort of making it as a central unit for the Norse. And just in case you don't actually know, I'll go look at the Berserk really quick. Over here, it's the replacement for the Ulfsark. You can see it looks the same. It's no longer a cavalry specialist, though. It is apparently good against whatever it can reach. I don't know if that means it has bonus damage against everything. I don't know if I can check that in game. I should probably do that, but yeah, that's the Berserk. And I'm pretty sure that is it for the Norse. We can check the Atlanteans now, and we do have to check the Atlanteans. They do have a lot of new stuff. They have the most new stuff, in fact, and so we're just going to start with the god text, because I forgot to look at these when I originally looked at all the god texts. Temporal Chaos for Kronos, completely new tech. Kronos increases the number of buildings that can be simultaneously time-shifted and reduces the cost of time-shifting defensive buildings. So you can time shift multiple buildings now when you get this tech for Kronos. And for palaces, sentry towers, and mirror towers, the time shift cost is reduced by 50%. I don't really know the applications of time shifting. It's a really weird mechanic of Kronos's. Regardless though, if you need to like take control of an area, this makes it a lot stronger or a lot easier to do with time shift. Like, it sounds like you could just time shift 3 palaces, for example. You could time shift 3 palaces onto your enemy's face or something. Like, that would be tough to deal with, right? So, I don't know, but it's a pretty cool change. It definitely puts more emphasis on Kronos' special mechanic, which I think is important to do, you know? It's important for the gods' you know, whole theme to be, like, supported by the game somehow. Part of the Titans is almost like an honorable mention. I'm not too sure, honestly. It says that it reduces hero promotion research points by 50%, and I don't know what research points are, so I'm gonna assume this is something to do with a new mechanic, so Heart of the Titans, there you go. Theft of Fire is a completely new tech for Prometheus. It increases the rate at which hero citizens do basically everything. It increases the rate at which they gather everything in the game by 20%, I'm pretty sure everything in the game, and it also boosts their building work rate by 20%. So hero citizens are insane if you get this tech. Leto has a new tech called Perception. This gives oracles plus 10% line of sight and plus 10% full capacity bonus for auto-gathering favor. I don't know exactly what that second effect does, but it does tease the fact that oracles are going to be the new way that Atlanteans gain favor. We can see that over here, actually, if we just go to the temple, keep scrolling, and we look at the oracle. Scout whose line of sight grows when immobile, cannot attack, generates favor. So that's a huge new thing for the Atlanteans. Checking Oceanus, we see that the divine damage type appears again. Bite of the Shark gives Murmillo and Fanatics extra damage, only 5%, but it also adds 0.25 divine damage over time to melee attacks for 3 seconds to those units. So more divine damage over time. Oceanus also has a completely new tech called Frontline Heroics, and this one reduces the cost of promoting your infantry units to heroes by 30% for food and gold. I think that's just 30% in general, because infantry units don't cost wood. Hyperion has a new tech called Sons of the Sun. This one converts oracles to heroes, and any newly trained oracles are heroes. I guess this is your one-stop shop for stopping myth units. Pioneer of the Skies enables siege biremes to shoot fireballs that inflict area damage. So siege biremes obviously are the Atlantean siege ship, and they now can shoot area damage fireballs. Rhea also has a new tech called Dock Tyloi, and this one just heals your ships that are near docks. Thea has a couple of new techs. First is Prophetic Sight. Thea increases the rate at which oracles generate favor and allows them to reveal what other players' buildings are training or researching. So that's like two new mechanics. We have the Oracle's favor work rate being boosted by 10%, and then they can also reveal what enemies are training and researching, just like the Oracle power that Apollo has. Lance of Stone features one of the new mechanics. This one is another range increasing mechanic. This tech improves the attack and range of Kontari, which are the Atlantean cavalry unit. It adds 0.5 to the melee attack maximum range and gives them 15% attack damage. So another unit that's going to have more range, and, you know, thematically appropriate since they have a spear. Makes sense, you know? New tech, Daughters of the Sea. Thea increases the movement speed of Nereids and allows them to recharge their special ability considerably faster. It increases their speed by 30%, and their ability recharge time is reduced by 50%. So it makes Nereids a lot more slippery, I suppose. The final three minor gods. The first thing I'm going to mention is Petrification, because this seems to come with a new, like, status effect of some kind, or a new action. It says that Helios petrifies the wood of your siege weapons, making them gain additional hack armor while standing still. This tech used to be called Petrify, and I think it also gave hack armor to these units, but it was like a general hack armor buff, where now it's a, like, action where when Chiroballista and Fire Siphons, is that all of the units? And Siege Biremes, when they're standing still, they have a bonus action, the Petrification bonus action, which is, I mean, I don't know, it sounds like a new sort of effect that they have. It increases their hack armor. Very nice. Titanomachy is a new upgrade for the Centimanus. It's no longer called the Hecka Gigantus, it's the Centimanus, and this tech upgrades them to Wardens of Tartarus, which is just a pretty cool name. And it also gives them additional arms and they attack faster. Although I don't know if they actually attack faster, because this tech only says that it gives them plus 50% melee damage. So something's up with the tech here. I don't know exactly, but it buffs the unit, which is nice. Atlas has Devotees of Atlas, a brand new tech, I believe. This one provides another missing HP effect to Fanatics. For every 1% HP missing, modify speed by 0.2% and rate of fire by 0.5%. So they move and attack faster, which is very similar to the other missing health effects that we've seen so far, but it applies to specifically Fanatics in this case. Finally, for Hecate, and I think this is the very last tech actually, it is called Asper Blood. Not a new tech, Asper Blood was already something in the game, but it has a completely new effect that allows the Lampades to transform enemy human units into chickens. So it gives the Lampades, or Lampades, I don't know, how do you say that? Whatever. It gives them a new ability. They transform enemy human units into chickens, which has definitely never been a thing in this game before. That is everything. That is all the new techs. I'm pretty sure if I missed something, I'm sorry. I suck as a YouTuber. I'm bad. Anyways, give me all your thoughts. I think that all of this stuff is really awesome. Yeah, I'm out of here, and I will see you in the next one.